So, good morning, everyone. My name is Arafath, and I teach history on the textbook platform. So, in this session, let us discuss uh, the causes for the failure of the 1857 revolt. So, in the previous class, we have had a discussion on the 1857 revolt. In fact, in the previous session, we have had a discussion. So, a very good morning to everyone once again. So let us continue our discussion. In the last class, we have had a discussion on the causes for the outbreak of the 1857 revolt. So we have discussed the reasons for the outbreak of the 1857 revolt. Now let us discuss the reasons for the failure of this revolt. So basically, the 1857 revolt was a revolt initiated by the sepoys of the British Indian Army. You know who the sepoys are. Basically, the Indian soldiers of the British Indian Army were referred to as the sepoys. So these sepoys, they revolted on a big scale against the British in 1857. So there was a large outbreak of a revolt. There was an outbreak of a revolt against the British in 1857, and this revolt was initiated by the sepoys. The point is, the sepoys had numerous grievances against the British, which made them take up arms and revolt against the British in 1857. The last class we have seen the reasons for the reasons that prompted or that forced the sepoys to revolt against the British that we have discussed in our previous class. So the whole point is, in 1857, the sepoys carried out a widespread revolt, and the sepoys revolted because of their long-standing grievances against the British. But as soon as the sepoys started the revolt, soon afterwards, the other sections of the Indian society, like say a few kings, a few kings, a few zamindars, peasants, artisans, etc., etc., actively participated in the 1857 revolt. At a point. But what was the objective of this revolt? The objective of the 1857 revolt was to end the British rule and revive the Mughal rule. Basically, in 1857, the last Mughal ruler was one Mr. Bahadur Shah. Bahadur Shah was the last Mughal ruler. So the Mughal rule continued to survive till 1857, but the Mughal ruler was the ruler just for namesake, but the Mughal rulers were very ineffective, they were powerless, they did not have much territory under their control, but the Mughal rule continued to survive till 1857, and the last Mughal rule happened to be Bahadur Shah. So the objective of the Sepoys revolt was to end the British rule and at the same time revive the Mughal authority, to revive the Mughal power, to revive the Mughal rule. That was the objective with which the Sepoys revolted in 1857. In 1857, but what was the end? How did this revolt end? Point is, this revolt ended up in a failure. Though the Sepoys revolted in 1857, though the revolt was widespread, uh, in the end, the revolt was successfully crushed by the British. That is, by the end of 1857 itself, the revolt was successfully crushed by the British. The point. So, uh, and therefore, let us see the reasons for the failure of the 1857 revolt. So, the whole point is, this 1857 revolt was a failed attempt. This revolt began with the objective of ending the British rule, but it did not happen that way. The point. So let us take a look at the various reasons for the failure of the 1857 revolt. The first reason is that this revolt suffered from territorial limitations. First reason for the decline or the failure of this movement is that this movement or this revolt suffered from territorial limitations. In other words, the 1857 revolt was by and large spread in few towns of North India and Central India, but whereas a large part of India, particularly the whole of western part of India, and to a very great extent in the whole of the southern part of India, there were not much of a revolt against the British. So why did this revolt fail? This revolt failed. Reason number one is because of territorial limitation. That is, this revolt suffered from territorial limitations. This revolt was by and large spread in few towns of North India, but by and large, a great part of Western India, whole of Bengal, and in fact, by and large, almost the great part of South India was not at all involved in this revolt. So there was not much of a revolt coming against the British from these three areas: Bengal, whole of Western India, and even the whole of southern part of India. And more importantly, this revolt was spread only to North India, and that too to a few towns of North India. Like, say, for example, this revolt was carried out in Delhi, Kanpur, Lucknow, Jhansi, etc., etc. If that be the case, uh, had this revolt carried out on very large scale, had this revolt carried out in all parts of India, possibly the 1857 revolt would have become a successful revolt. But in this case, that's not the case. Uh, this revolt indeed suffered from territorial limitation. The reason number one for the failure of the 1857 revolt was because of the territorial limitation. Second, take a look at this map. So these are basically some centers of revolt. So basically, the revolt was spread in Meerut, Bareilly, Lucknow, Kanpur, Jhansi, Gwalior, Delhi, etc. But you can see whole of the western part of India, barring for a few places like Satara, and say the whole of South India did not witness any major revolt against. The revolt started in all parts of India. Possibly, had the revolt started or had the revolt was if the revolt was carried out in all parts of India, possibly the 1857 revolt would have become successful revolt. Take a look at the second reason. The second reason is also a very important reason. The point is this revolt, the 1857 revolt, could not secure the support of a large section of the Indian society. This is another very important reason. The 1857 revolt could not secure the support of a large number of people belonging to different sections of the society. At a point, take a look at the role of the kings. I told you while discussing the reasons for the outbreak of the revolt, I told you a few of the rulers revolted against the British. But in 1850s, there were about 560 plus princely states. In 1850s, there were about 560 plus princely states. Of these 560 plus princely states, only a few revolted against the British. At a point, say 5 to 6 princely states revolted against the British. So these 5 to 6 accounts for only 1% of the entire or the total princely states. In other words, 99% of the princely states remained either neutral or worse, they even supported the British. Let me repeat this point once again. The second reason for the failure of the 1857 revolt was that the revolt failed to secure the support of a large section of the society. So, for example, take the case of the kings. What role did the kings play? I told you that in 1850s there were about 560 plus princely states. of which only 5 to 6 princely states revolted against the British. So it means that only 1% of the total princely states revolted. 99% of the princely states, they remained either neutral, or they even very actively supported the British in suppressing the 1857 revolt. Some princely states, they remained mute spectators, they remained neutral, but some princely states, they actively supported the British in suppressing the 1857 revolt. For example, take the case of Hyderabad. Take the case of Hyderabad. In Hyderabad, that is in Deccan part of India, in the Hyderabad state, the revolt was carried out by a revolutionary by name Turrebaz Khan. Turrebaz Khan, he revolted against the British. He carried out a revolt against the British. Point. But the point is, the ruler of Hyderabad state in 1857 was one Mr. Afzaluddaulah. So Afzaluddaulah was the ruler of the Hyderabad state. So the Afzaluddaulah remained very loyal to the British, and importantly, his prime minister. So the prime minister of the Hyderabad state was one Mr. Salar Jung. So this Salar Jung was a very efficient administrator, but the point is, the Salar Jung was a British loyalist. This Salar Jung, the prime minister of the Hyderabad state, was a British loyalist. Both the ruler and the prime minister, that is Afzaluddaulah and Salar Jung, played a very important role in suppressing the 1857 revolt in the Hyderabad region. At a point, in fact, uh, the Nizam's troops, the Nizam's army, arrested Turrebaz Khan and handed him over to the British. And in the same year, in 1857, Turrebaz Khan was publicly hanged. So the point is, Turrebaz Khan was a revolutionary. He revolted against the British. But the ruler of Hyderabad, that is Afzaluddaulah, instead of siding with Turrebaz Khan, actively helped the British in suppressing this 1857 revolt. This is one example of an Indian ruler helping the British in suppressing the 1857 revolt. Take a look at another example. We have another ruler by name 𝐬𝐝𝐸, who is basically the ruler of uh, who was basically a Maratha ruler. So basically, 𝐬𝐝𝐸 was the ruler of basically the Gwalior region was ruled by the Sindhyas. Repeat, the Gwalior region was ruled by the Sindhyas, which is basically a Maratha kingdom. So the ruler of this Gwalior kingdom was 𝐬𝐝𝐸 Sindhya, and he too had a very powerful prime minister by name Dinkar Rao. So the ruler 𝐬𝐝𝐸 and his prime minister Dinkar Rao played a very important role in suppressing the 1857 revolt in the Gwalior and Jhansi regions. So just besides Gwalior, we have a kingdom called Jhansi Kingdom. And the ruler of the Jhansi Kingdom is a well-known personality, that is Lakshmi Bai. This is Manikarnika. Manikarnika, otherwise known as Lakshmi Bai. So she carried a very she fought very bravely against the British. She revolted against the British. But it is these individuals, 𝐬𝐝𝐸 Sindhya, the Gwalior ruler, and his prime minister Dinkar Rao, who played a very important role in suppressing the revolt against the British in Jhansi. So basically, Lakshmi Bai was in fact defeated by 𝐬𝐝𝐸 Sindhya and Dinkar Rao. But they played a very important role in the defeat of Lakshmi Bai of Jhansi, or Jhansi Lakshmi Bai, or Manikarnika. This is another example. We have another example. So we have Sikandar Jahan Begum of Bhopal. Bhopal was another princely state. So the ruler of Bhopal at that time was Sikandar Jahan Begum. She too was a British loyalist. She actively supported the British in suppressing the 1857 revolt. And another example is we have Man Singh. Man Singh was the ruler of a small kingdom in the Chambal region. Call this as a Chambal kingdom at a point. So this is based in Madhya Pradesh. So basically, Man Singh was the ruler of a small kingdom in the Chambal region. We call this as Chambal Kingdom. So during the 1857 revolt, one of the most famous revolutionaries of the 1857 revolt was Tantia Tope. Tantia Tope. This Tantia Tope initially assisted Nana Sahib in his fight against the British. Later, Tantia Tope even assisted 𝐻𝐸 Lakshmi Bai in fighting against the British. So one of the most daring revolutionaries of the 1857 revolt happened to be Tantia Tope. Initially, he associated with Nana Sahib. He helped Nana Sahib in fighting against the British. Later, after the defeat of Nana Sahib, Tantia Tope assisted Lakshmi Bai in fighting against the British. But the point is, this ruler, this Man Singh of this Chambal kingdom, uh, helped the British in the capture of Tantia Tope. So basically, Tantia Tope uh, escaped British arrest. He somehow evaded British arrest. Tantia Tope, till 1859, continued to challenge the British through the guerrilla warfare method. Let me repeat, the 1857 revolt ended in 1857 itself, but Tantia Tope somehow evaded the British arrest. Till 1859, he took shelter in the Chambal region. Tantia Tope continued to carry out the attacks against the British through the guerrilla warfare method. Guerrilla warfare method means, in simple terms, uh, a, a, a military tactic which believes in taking the enemy camp by surprise. So basically, hiding and attacking is a very important characteristic of the guerrilla warfare method. So in guerrilla warfare method, usually the enemy camp is taken by surprise. So Tantia Tope was an expert. He was an expert in the guerrilla warfare method. The whole point which I'm trying to convey is that till 1859, he carried guerrilla warfare against British. He was very successful. But this Man Singh was the one who played an important role in the capture of Tantia Tope. So in 1859 itself, Tantia Tope was captured and executed by the British. That's the point. The whole point is, we are now discussing why did the 1857 revolt ended. I told you uh, of the 560 plus the princely states, only a handful revolted against the British, but a majority of the princely states either remained neutral or even sided with the British. Examples, these are the one who sided with the British. For example, we have discussed the role played by Hyderabad ruler, the role played by the Gwalior ruler, then the role of Sikandar Jahan Begum of Bhopal, then the role played by Man Singh. Similarly, another Maratha kingdom, that is the Holkars, they too remained loyal to the British. These Holkars, that is who were the rulers of Indore, they too remained loyal to the British. And say, for example, Narendra Singh of Patiala. Patiala, that is in Punjab. So the Narendra Singh, another ruler of a small princely state, he too remained very, very loyal to the British. In fact, they played a very important role in suppressing the 1857 revolt. At a point. So during the 1857 revolt, the Governor General of India was Lord Canning. During the 1857 revolt, the Governor General of India was Lord Canning. So Lord Canning too acknowledged the important role played by the princely states in the suppression of the 1857 revolt. Let me repeat this point once again. The Governor General during the 1857 revolt was Lord Canning. This Lord Canning too acknowledged the important role played by the princely states in suppressing the 1857 revolt. Basically, this Lord Canning famously described the role played by the princely states during the 1857 revolt as the breakwaters of the storm. He famously described, Lord Canning famously described the role played by the princely states during the 1857 revolt as the breakwaters of the storm, meaning they basically acted as a barrier. They basically acted as a barrier to the growing, they basically acted as a barrier to the spread of the 1857 revolt. That's the point. So basically, this this the very acknowledgement given by the very acknowledgement of Lord Canning makes it very clear that the princely states did play uh, or did help the British in suppressing the 1857 revolt. Take a look at the role of the Zamindars. In the last class, uh, I told you that the Zamindars also revolted against the British, but the number of Zamindars who revolted against the British were very few. Only a handful of Zamindars revolted against the British. For example, say I gave you the example of Kumar Singh. Kumar Singh was basically the Zamindar of Jagdishpur in Bihar. Was the Zamindar of Jagdishpur in Bihar. So he revolted against the British. But a majority of the Zamindars, 99% of the Zamindars, remained loyal to the British. They remained quite loyal to the British. In fact, the Zamindars had their class association called as the Landholders Association. The Zamindars had formed an association way back in 1838 itself, and this association is called as Landholders Association. Basically, this association was formed to secure the interest of the landlords of Bengal. Basically, this Landholders Association was founded to secure the interest of the landlords, particularly that of Bengal. So, after the 1857 revolt, the Landholders Association passed a resolution condemning those Zamindars who revolted against the British in 1857. Let me repeat. The point is, only a few Zamindars revolted against the British, but 99% of the Zamindars, they stood rock solid behind the British. They were very, very loyal to the British. They remained very loyal to the British during the 1857 revolt. They extended all sorts of help to the British during the 1857 revolt. That is 99% of the Zamindar. In fact, the association of the Zamindars, that is the Landholders Association, even passed a resolution condemning those Zamindars who revolted against the British in 1857. And in fact, this Landholders Association even passed a resolution. Uh, uh, it passed a resolution condemning the activities of the Zamindars, those Zamindars who revolted against the British. So that's another important reason for the failure of the 1857 revolt. So had all the Zamindars with whatever resources they had, if they had come forward and supported the other revolutionaries, possibly the 1857 revolt would have become a very successful revolt. Take the case of the role played by the sepoys. I told you that the sepoys were the one who initiated the 1857 revolt. But the point is, the sepoys, I told you, sepoys are basically the Indian soldiers. Sepoys were basically the Indian soldiers of the British Indian Army. So it is these sepoys who initiated the 1857 revolt. But the point is, the sepoys is not a homogeneous group. Sepoys is not a homogeneous group. It was in fact comprised of people from various communities. Sepoys was not a homogeneous group. It comprised of people belonging to various regions and various religions. So, for example, the sepoys are comprised of the Hindus, The sepoys also comprised of the Muslims. The sepoys also comprised of the Sikhs, plus the sepoys also comprised of Gurkhas. The Gurkhas, these happens to be the Nepalis. Nepalis. I hope I am clear. So the whole point is the sepoys were the one who initiated, I'm sorry, the sepoys were the one who initiated the 1857 revolt, but the sepoys themselves were not a homogeneous group. They in fact comes from different religious backgrounds. So for example, there were Hindu sepoys, Muslim sepoys, Sikh sepoys, Gurkha sepoys, etc., etc. But the point is, during the 1857 revolt, only the Hindu and the Muslim sepoys revolted. During the 1857 revolt, I'm sorry, during the 1857 revolt, only the Hindu and the Muslim sepoys revolted. Good point. But the Sikh sepoys and the Gurkha sepoys remained very loyal to the British. The Sikh sepoys and Gurkha sepoys, they remained very loyal to the British. In fact, uh, the sepoys revolt of 1857, the sepoys revolt of 1857 was suppressed by the sepoys only, because this revolt saw the participation of the Hindu and Muslim sepoys, but the Sikh and Gurkha sepoys, they did not participate. They remained very loyal to the British. These sepoys played a very important role. That is, the Sikh and the Gurkha sepoys played a very important role in suppressing the revolt carried out by the Hindu and the Muslim sepoys. That's the point. So the third reason for the failure of the 1857 revolt was the lack of participation of the Sikh and the Gurkha sepoys. This is also another very important reason. Fourth, the role played by the intellectuals, by which I mean the educated section. Intellectuals, I mean the educated sections of the Indian society. So the educated sections, the educated members of the Indian society, by and large, did not support the 1857 revolt. The educated sections, that is sorry, there is some problem here. So basically, the 1857 revolt did not see any participation of the educated sections. These are Indians only, but the point is, these educated Indians, they did not support the sepoys during the 1857 revolt, because they were convinced that the modernization of India, that is, these educated sections were convinced that the modernization of India is possible only under the British rule. That was their firm belief. They believed that modernization of India can take place only under the British rule. At a point. So the educated sections were worried that the success of the 1857 revolt might take India back into the medieval theocratic ages. Basically, the educated section believed that the success of the 1857 revolt might take India back into the medieval feudal theocratic ages or theocratic age. That was their belief. That was their thinking. So hence, they refused to extend their support to the sepoys, or they refused to extend their support during the 1857. They in fact sided with the British. They wrote extensively criticizing uh, those Indians who revolted against the British during 1857 revolt. So for any revolt to succeed, support from different sections of the society is a must. But in this case, the educated sections, they largely sided with the British. So there is a historian by name S.N. Sen who wrote a book known as 1857. So S.N. Sen is a modern day historian. He wrote a book titled 1857. The point. So in this book, S.N. Sen argued, that is in the book 1857, Do not get confused. The title of the book is 1857. So in the book 1857, Sen argued that the educated sections, that is the Indian intellectuals, did not support the did not he basically argued that the Indian intellectuals did not support the revolutionaries because they would put the clock black. This is an expression which Essensen has used in the book 1857. Basically, Essensen argued that the educated sections did not support the revolutionaries because they feared that the revolutionaries would put a clock back, meaning that uh, the 1857 revolt was reactionary rather than progressive, meaning that the 1857 revolt was reactionary rather than progressive, because the objective of the 1857 revolt was to end the British rule and revive the Mughal authority. So therefore, the educated sections were of the view that potentially the sepoys might take India back into the medieval ages. That's the point. They might take India into feudal theocratic ages. So therefore, they refused to extend their support to the 1857 revolt. That is, they refused to extend their support to the sepoys during the 1857. This is another very important reason. Come to the last important reason. We have second important reason is we have another miscellaneous factors responsible for the failure of the 1857 revolt. Take a look at the leadership. So the sepoys during the 1857 revolt, that is, the leadership for the sepoys during the 1857 revolt was provided by Bahadur Shah, that is the last Mughal ruler. The leadership for the sepoys during the 1857 revolt was provided by Bahadur Shah, but Bahadur Shah was 80-year-old by the time itself. He was an old man. He neither had uh, any experience of any time leading an army. Bahadur Shah was already very old, so he neither had the resources with him to revolt against the British. He neither had any troops to effectively fight against the British. So the point is, there is absolutely no comparison between the leadership of Bahadur Shah and the leadership provided by Lord Canning, who was the Governor General. So the point which I'm trying to convey is I am also discussing some other factors responsible for the decline of the 1857 revolt. One is lack of leadership. So absolutely there is no comparison between the leadership of Bahadur Shah and the leadership provided by Lord Canning. So Lord Canning was a much more experienced officer, experienced general. He he had the experience of leading his troops, and therefore that became another important reason for the failure of 1857 revolt. Then resource base. The British had a large resource base, had uh, large resources at their command, both the uh, resources in terms of uh, arms and ammunition, resources in terms of money, resources in terms of manpower, which was not the case with the sepoys. The sepoys had limited arms and ammunition with them. The sepoys had limited money with them. The sepoys also had a limited human resource, that is, limited number of sepoys. That was not the case with respect to the British. Third, lack of coordination. The point is, this revolt was carried out in different towns of North India, like say Delhi, Kanpur, Lucknow, Jhansi, etc., etc. But the point is, in all of these centers, uh, the there was not much of a coordination between the sepoys. Undoubtedly, the sepoys carried out revolt against the British from different cities of North India like Delhi, Kanpur, Lucknow, Jhansi, etc. But the sepoys could not effectively coordinate their activities in all of these towns, which was not the case with the British. The British, on the other hand, very effectively coordinated their activities, and therefore they could very easily suppress the 1857 revolt by the end of 1857. The point. So these are some of the factors. The second factor is a minor one, but the first factor which we have already discussed here, this is the factor. So the first factor happened to be this one. So basically, this revolt suffered from territorial limitation. This is factor number one. And factor number two is it suffered from this one. It suffered from, it did not see the support from large sections of the Indian society. So, for example, there was not much of a support coming from the kings, support coming from the kings such as, say for example, Hyderabad, Scindias of Gwalior, Sikandar Jahan Begum. So basically, there was not much of a support coming from the kings. There was not even much support coming from the Zamindars, not much support coming from the Sepoys. Sepoys, only half the Sepoys participated. The other half of the Sepoys, they remained very loyal to the British. This is another factor. The fourth reason, intellectuals, they also refused to extend their full support to to the the Sepoys. The point. Then we have other factors. This is minor factor. The second other factors, what I have written here, these happen to be some minor factors. So these are basically overall the factors responsible for the failure of the 1857. Any questions? Any doubts? Any doubts? Anyone? So that's all for today. Tomorrow we shall meet once again and take up discussion on some other topic. Fine. So that's all for today. See you in the next class.